Hello world, and welcome to the Genesis Bible study. Today we'll be doing lessons 6 and 7. I'm going to combine them because lesson 6 is meant to be on day 5 and lesson 7 on day 6. And we're talking about God's creation in the sense of the creatures he created, air, sea, and land creatures. So that's why I do them together. We'll also be taking a brief look at things like what they ate and some missing links in how far those are reliable. So let's start with lesson 6, air and sea creatures. The Bible says there, and God said, "Let the water swarm with swarms of living creatures, and let the birds fly above the earth across the expanse of the heavens." So God created the great sea creatures and every living creature that moves, with which the waters swarm according to their kinds, and every winged bird according to its kind. And God saw that it was good. And God blessed them, saying, "Be fruitful and multiply, and fill the earth in the seas, and let the birds multiply on the earth." And there was evening, and there was morning, the fifth day. Now, creationists believe that God created all creatures exactly as they are today, and nothing has changed since creation. False. That's not what creationists believe. To get an idea, we have to go into the scientific study called Baraminology. Bara is Hebrew for created. Min is Hebrew for kind. Baramin is a created kind. Therefore, Baraminology is the study of created kinds. And this is going to show you what we Christians believe in, or we creationists. You see, we believe that within every baramin or created kind, there is enough information to allow for all the variations today. Take, for example, the dog. There are big dogs, small dogs, middle dogs, long-haired, short-haired, all sorts of different variations, all within the created dog kind. And that is what we believe God created originally, is the base model, and the rest of the variations came as they spread across the world. Now, there are some very interesting creatures that can be created, especially when you think about the sea creatures, and the Bible talks about them. Job 41 introduces us. This is God speaking to Job, and he says, "Can you draw out Leviathan with a fishhook, or press down his tongue with a cord?" And there comes this huge description of an impressive sea creature. Now, many people want to say that Leviathan, God meant the crocodile. But that's a good question. Is that what Leviathan was? You see, we have in Psalms also, it says, "Here is the sea great and wide, which teems with creatures innumerable, living things both small and great. There go the ships, and Leviathan, which you formed to play in it." And this is more a description of the ocean, and crocodiles do not live in the ocean. So what sea creature lives in the ocean that is great and monstrous? Well, we used to have plesiosaurs. Could they have been? Or what about the megalodon? You see, there are some amazing fossils of creatures we find that we don't see today, some really impressive creatures. And if God created everything, it means he had to create these as well. How does that fit within a Christian viewpoint? We'll get to that later. But those are some amazing creatures that God created. If you even have to think, Jonah 1, we read that the Lord appointed a great fish to swallow Jonah. And Jonah was in the belly of the fish 3 days and 3 nights. And people say Jonah could never be swallowed by a whale, but it says a great fish. Who says it was a whale? It could easily have been a megalodon. In fact, there are whale-type creatures bigger than the sperm whale that they believe could be the type of whale as well. But you see, we don't know exactly, because we don't know what happened to all these creatures. We just know that they died off, but we have the fossils of them. Now, to get a better idea of what happened, and especially with prehistoric creatures, we're going to have to do a study of Genesis. And then we come to our 7th lesson, which is on the land creatures and man. Okay, it says, "And God said, let the earth bring forth living creatures according to its kinds." Again, they're the baramin. "Livestock and creeping things, and the beasts of the earth according to their kinds. And it was so. And God made the beasts of the earth according to their kinds, and the livestock according to their kinds, and everything that creeps on the ground according to its kind. And God saw that it was good. Then God said, let us make man in our image, after our likeness, and let him have dominion over the fish of the sea, and over the birds of the heavens, and over the livestock, and all the earth, and over every creeping thing that creeps on the earth." So God created man in his own image. And the image of God he created him, male and female he created them. And God blessed them, and God said to him, "Be fruitful and multiply, and fill the earth and subdue it, and have dominion over the fish of the sea and the birds of the heavens and every living thing that moves on the earth." And God said, "Behold, I've given you every plant yielding seed that is on the face of the earth, of all the earth, and every tree with a seed in its fruit, and you shall have them for food. And to every beast of the earth, and every bird of the heavens, and everything that creeps on the earth, everything that has the breath of life, I have given every green plant for food." And it was so. And God saw everything that he had made, and behold, it was very good. And there was evening, and there was morning, the sixth day. Okay, remember we already discussed what is life when we were talking about the start of life. And we mentioned things like blood, anything that has breath in it, and we also mentioned the soul. Now, in the Bible, we have the word nephesh, which is translated as soul or as living creature. And it's important to note that animals have a nephesh when God created them. However, man is a nephesh. It says in Genesis 2 that then God formed the man of the dust of the ground and breathed into his nostrils and the breath of life, and the man became a living creature. And the word there is nephesh. In other words, man became a soul. Man became something more than the animals. And that's something we have to always keep in mind. We are not animals, we are more. Right, the diet. Genesis 1:30, it says, "I've given every green plant for food." Now, one of the things that people do look at is we look at the teeth of animals, especially wolves' fierce teeth. What about the lion with its teeth? Any of the great cats? What about these teeth? This is from the T-Rex. And we have this skull of this amazing creature with its fangs. Well, I can tell you that this is a fruit bat. It needs those fangs. Otherwise, it can't get through the skins of the guava, a fruit it eats. And originally, when God created certain creatures, he gave them certain teeth for what they had to eat. And I don't think they were... Well, let's put it this way. When God made them to eat the green plant, I think some animals would have a tough time getting through coconuts and watermelons. Unless they had sharp teeth, they could get through them. So it is still consistent regardless of the teeth you have as to what you ate. It doesn't mean aggressive teeth are automatically going to be meat eaters. In fact, there are many animals, even lions that they've had in captivity, which would not eat meat and ate fruits. There are a couple of animals I'd like to go through now, which I think are very interesting problems for evolution and fit well in a creation paradigm. You see, there's a miracle of nature. You have a giraffe that gets thirsty and needs to drink water, and as it drops its head, all the blood runs into the brain and kills the giraffe. That's a problem. The miracle is it actually has a sponge-like organ just short of the skull that soaks up all the blood, therefore not killing the giraffe. Something else. The giraffe gets up. There's no blood going into the head. It's all in the sponge, and the giraffe faints. Well, no. That sponge then lets it all out. You see, the giraffe has this amazing organ that has to be there, otherwise the long neck doesn't work. This all has to be there at the same, in working well, and cannot evolve over eons. Otherwise, yeah, it kind of creates a weird intermediary with a useless organ. So it's a rather intricate animal that has to be that way, made that way from the beginning. People like to talk about vestigial organs or rudimentary organs, and a good example they use is the little bones in the whale that are left over from when it used to walk on land. Except there's something people don't tell you. Those bones are very necessary for whales to give birth. Without them, they can't give birth. So they are by no means useless. They very much are necessary. And then the honeybee is one of the worst designed creatures, they say, to fly. Yet it inspired things like the helicopter, but it is an amazing creature that it can fly, just to baffle them. And I think God really created the following just to really mess up people who believe in evolution. The duck-billed platypus. It's a mammal that lays eggs and lives in water and has a duck bill. And there are many of these examples you'll find in nature that evolution cannot really explain because it makes no sense in an evolutionary world. Things that can't evolve, things that just wouldn't have survived. These days, they said no longer work on the idea of survival of the fittest, but the survival of he who can reproduce the most. Another animal in the Bible, though, that's very interesting, we've spoke about Leviathan, is Behemoth. And it says, "Behold Behemoth, which I made as I made you. He eats grass like an ox. Behold, his strength is in his loins, and his power in the muscles of his belly. He makes his tail stiff like a cedar, and the sinews of his thighs are knit together. His bones are tubes of bronze, and his limbs are bars of iron." And it goes on to describe further an amazing animal. Now, there are some people who want to say, yes, what the Bible's talking about is the hippo or the elephant with a tail like a cedar. Another thing is, if you ever have a problem with the elephant, one of its weakest areas is its belly, and we just read Behemoth has its strength in its belly. So, really? There is a creature we have the bones of which we can see, which does have an amazing tail like a tree. May I introduce Behemoth? It is the best animal to fit that description. Also in the Bible, we have the word Tanian, which very often is translated as dragon, as in Isaiah 27:1. "And he will slay the dragon that is in the sea." It's a word which comes often in the Bible, which used to be translated dragon, but these days people struggle a little bit more with what they should do with it. You see, the best translation for Tanian would actually be a giant reptile. Pre-1800, they were referred to as dragons. Post-1800, they are referred to as dinosaurs. Dinosaur means terrible lizard, or giant reptile, basically. I do have a more extensive talk on dinosaurs. If you'd like me to put that up and to go through that, I'm willing to do so. Leave it in the comments, and I'll plan to do that in more detail some point. But to keep the study manageable, we have to go further. Fossils. Fossils are used as proof for evolution. What do fossils prove? Well, they prove a creature lived and it died. It does not tell you anything about its children, if it had any, or anything about its parents. And generally, to create a fossil, you need a rapid burial, not millions of years. Otherwise, it would decompose. So you need to be buried rapidly with a lot of minerals in the soil that it's in. And the thing about this whole fossil record is there are no missing links as they claim. Oh, but wait, they would say we had Coelacanth, which is an amphibian. You see, they have a limb starting to grow off this fish. Except they found Coelacanth. Eventually, it's not extinct, it's a fish. It is a pure fish. There is no intermediate form here. When you go through this, though, the most interesting ones, though, are intermediate forms for humans. So we get the Piltdown Man, which was a intermediate form, a missing link. Eventually it was found out it was made from an ape jaw and human skull, and the bones were about 600 years old. Then there's Ramapithecus. This is what was found. This is what was drawn. Turns out to be a jaw from a baboon out Ethiopia. Here's an important thing to do an analysis of. Who does the following? Who uses jewelry? Who makes music with musical instruments? Who draws? It be on rocks or not? Children do rock drawings all over the house, don't they? Who talks? Who knows how to make fire? Who buries the dead? Humans do that. So do Neanderthals. You see, Neanderthals were always seen as this half-ape type thing, busy, before humans, but they found out that Neanderthals are very human-like. In fact, very many humans have Neanderthal blood within them. They are not separatists. It's almost, you'd almost have to be racist and then start saying, yeah, but Asians and Africans and whites are not all the same human and different, and that's not right. Neanderthals were different in some ways, but were very, very human. You see, a lot of what's happened is they would draw the Neanderthal skull like this, but if you were to move the jaw into the socket where it belongs, you'd get a more human skull. And that's the thing, is it's how you draw or the pictures or put the things together is the only way you can get a missing link, but never out of actual bones and fossils. A few more just for to show the ideas. Nebraska man was designed from a pig's tooth. Australopithecines which is Lucy, that amazing creature with that human-like knee. Well, the knee was not part of the original skeleton. And the hands and feet, well, are usually drawn on Lucy as human hands and feet, but they found many, many Australopithecines with hands, knees, feet that are very chimpanzee-like. So it's more like a chimpanzee relative than it's a missing link. Homo erectus was an ape skull and a human hip. And it goes on and on. There are no missing links. You see, Genesis 1 says that God said, let us make man in our image, in our likeness. And then it says that God went and did that. We are made in the image of God. You see, according to the Bible, man is the image of God. It's the crown of his creation. But evolution teaches that man is an accident that came later, is only an animal, is destroying creation, and there's no added value. Hence why we have things like abortion, euthanasia, and racism, which are so rampant and are justified from an evolutionary viewpoint because it is survival of the fittest. Anyway, with that, we will leave the study for now. I would like to ask you to like and comment, subscribe. And like I say, if you'd like to have more information on these things, do leave questions in the comments. I will get to them later. If you'd like to see the dinosaur presentation I have in its entirety, also let me know in the comments, and I will plan in some time to go through that as well. And we'll go in more depth into dinosaurs and the Bible and what the true history of the dinosaurs is. Anyway, thank you for listening. Keep well and God bless.